to thank everybody for coming out on this really hot evening. All right. And if you'll notice, and I'm sure you probably will, we're going hot, very high tech this evening. Okay, I'm going to need a motion to approve the agenda.
So you're pulling S.
And we're pulling item S, which will be tabled.
Discussion and action.
Discussion and action.
You need a motion to approve the agenda without for discussion.
I need a motion to approve the agenda without S for discussion.
I'll second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries. Board dialogue. Have anything you'd like to add this evening specifically? How's everybody doing with the technology?
We'll see.
You look
We'll
good.
see.
You look very good. Okay, we'll start with communications then. Do we have any communication from the audience? I'm assuming that since everybody's on vacation, we're not going to have any student voices or recognition this evening? Anyone? Okay, and letters circulated. Everybody get a chance to see those? Dr. Thomas tells me that we'll be able to scan those and have them at the ready on our technology, which will be a bonus. Okay, any CTA report this evening? Thank you. And we're down to superintendent's report.
Basically, I just wanted to thank everybody for the work that they've done for our maiden voyage on the technology. Next month, we'll have more than one point of access for the wireless. So if there's some delay in some of the information this week, that will get taken care of by the time that we come back the next time. Diana Dawson, Brenda Trask, Laura Zanito, the technology department, everybody's worked really hard for this maiden voyage, and we really appreciate your patience and the training that you put into it as well. So I think we're on our way.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so we are down to, now we're going to, I need a, I'm sorry.
I'm just getting ready.
Okay, thank you. So we're down to the information, and we're going to, we're down to D for our summer school update, and that's going to be Miss Sarah Long.
Madam President and members of the board, under item D, you have an update of our summer school, which did only conclude last Friday. So teachers are sleeping late and students are sleeping late this week. It was very successful. We will actually get the final ADA numbers and what we came out financially when we get the first payment. That's in a couple of months. But as you can see, we averaged 91% overall attendance. Numerous students at every grade level. The best part is that allows high school kids to make up some credits that maybe they have lost along the year, and then it also allows some of our students who need a jump start to be sure that they have lessons secure as they end a grade to give them that extra help as well. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to entertain those. Yes.
On the 91%, is that the kids that signed up for summer school and then they just didn't show up at all? Is that where that comes
The
from?
91% is for those kids who were actually enrolled in our summer school. So that means that, 9 out of 10 days.
They just, okay.
But different kids were out at different times. Some students, left for a week because they had maybe vacation Bible school, or their parents actually took a vacation within the summer school ranks. But these are the kids who were actually enrolled and were attending summer school.
Okay.
Miss Sarah, what's the history of Farmington? Any idea what the history of Farmington School District, what the average has been? Has it been hovering around 91? No.
For attendance-wise?
Yes, for summer school.
This is pretty close to where we were last year. You know, numerous years ago, we ran a very large summer school that had a lot of enrichment activities. That's before the state sort of changed the funding structure when districts actually got double funded for summer school, and people were very enthusiastic about getting large numbers of students in. At that time, attendance tended to run a little higher than it does now. This is definitely an academic summer school. If there are no further questions, thank you.
You might want to
While
stay.
you're-
Oh, I'm staying here.
While you're up, how about giving us an update on professional development along with the external participation that we've had and kind of explaining that, and then our
Totally.
leadership cadre as well?
I'd be happy to do that. Thank you. Our district is always looking at kind of what's new and the best practice in professional development. And just starting this year, as we are bringing in speakers, are providing strong leadership and training for our teachers. For several of those opportunities, we are offering other districts the chance to participate in our area, or the private and parochial schools to send teachers. And that is actually helping us offset the cost of bringing in a speaker or providing the training. So if you'll notice, several of the items that we are providing or have provided that are listed below, we offer instructional practices inventory, which is Dr. Jerry Valentine out of the University of Missouri. That was open to private and parochial teachers just this May. And then Matt spearheaded an ACT training. We brought down some consultants from Cambridge, and we had 31 participants. 16 of those were from other districts. So that offset the cost of bringing in the presenter by almost half, but still allowed a lot of our teachers to participate as well. And then we're getting ready for Pathways training, and we have another district that's going to send 10, and then we also have private and parochial that's going to send at least 3 teachers to be trained, and that will be our staff doing the training, but we will actually charge the other districts. And then we have a teenage brain one coming up that we're bringing a consultant in after school starts, and again, that will be open to neighboring districts. It's pretty costly to bring someone with expertise in, but this is helping us to provide the best for our teachers and then still open it up to neighboring districts as well.
I apologize. I was kind of focused right here, but how do we get information out to other districts that we're offering this?
We do a variety of things. Our principals belong to the Principal Association, and usually we're using that listserv or at meetings for the Area Principals Association. We also do some phone calling if we know a district's already been involved. For example, Arcadia Valley's the one that's using Pathways, and our ICCs have been working with that district, and we knew that they wanted the training already. So we try to send it out generally electronically, but then if we have some idea that a district's using a certain program, we're sure to call them and let them know when we're offering it, if we have available slots, if they'd like to send teachers, and what the cost would be.
Okay.
All right, the next one, if there are no questions about entrepreneurial PD, we'll move on to the leadership cadre. This will be starting this next school year, the 3rd year of an opportunity for any staff member who would like to either volunteer and fill out the application themselves, or someone else can nominate a staff member. And what we try to do is just work on leadership skills so that any staff member can choose to increase their leadership capacity. It's always after school, happens 4 to 5 times a year. It's led by our staff members. This last year, the focus was on technology and the Common Core state standards and what that was going to mean, changes in our classrooms. And what you're going to see as a board is that we're starting keyboarding all the way down to 2nd grade this next school year, because we have to have students at 3rd and 4th grade who can use keyboarding to begin to write, which is an expectation. But that was the task that this group of leaders from across our district took on, and they looked at best practices. Some visited Lindbergh School to look at how they do keyboarding. They checked out what our actual technology infrastructure would need to be successful and bring keyboarding down that far, and computer applications. So it's just an opportunity for us to kind of grow our own, give people in a variety of jobs the chance to take on a leadership role, to do some planning, and do some activities that relate to leadership. I think that's it. Thank
Mr.
you.
Hain had a really good point. So if you get some of these 2nd graders trained, you can have them come and help us.
Yes, we will give each one of you a coach, which will be a 2nd grader.
That'll be great. So
Excellent,
thank you,
and they
Sarah.
will zip right past where each one of us is,
Right.
too, I'm sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Rubel, can you tell us a little bit about alternatives and interventions for high school, specifically night school?
Yes, when we look at our overall data, one of the things that we wanted to do is provide additional supports and additional learning opportunities for some of our students who are not being successful during the regular school day. And one of the things we came up with was the night school concept, and it's night school. It happens to be, some of that happens to be at night also. But times will be flexible, basically, for each student. We'll set up individual learning plans for those students and a variety of learning opportunities for them, some of those being regular curriculum, some of those being A+ learning systems. We're also looking into a Pangea math program that DeSoto is using, which will actually provide 5 levels of support for students struggling in Algebra 1 and geometry. So we'll use a variety of those supports. And again, just trying to help those students be successful and find success. And again, it could be a variety of different mechanisms to provide that support for the students. Trying to meet them where they're at and trying to help them be successful so we can get them college and career ready.
Any questions?
Now, this won't take away from homebound services for kids that need that?
No, separate from homebound.
Okay.
Do you think there's a possibility that some of the kids that are homebound at some point can transition to night school? Would that be a possibility?
Could be a possibility. We haven't really discussed that or haven't thought about that, but that would definitely be a possibility. Because again, we're looking at trying to meet the students where they're at, and again, a variety of different students have different needs at different times throughout the semester. And just providing the support during the regular school day, and then extending that to the after school program, and again, just trying to help them be successful.
The nomenclature of homebound is misleading. Just because a student is considered homebound doesn't mean they're really at home. And I think that's part of the confusion. And the reason I'm bringing that up is that some of the students, we're still working through the funding mechanism with this. Some of the students who participate in the night school may be tracked as homebound for financial purposes. So you want to think about homebound as a category of payment more so than a location.
Well, I was thinking about students who are maybe in a healing process.
Yeah, they're those kind of homebound
Right,
kids.
that's kind of what I was thinking about.
Right.
Or some kids are in transition in like a therapy kind of situation where they're social anxiety.
True
and then they
homebound,
can-
right.
Right. Thank you for making that distinction. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Rubel? Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, we're going down to item N, the energy.
We skipped that.
Did we?
Yep.
L, I didn't have it. Okay, Mr. Owen, how about getting up and telling us about L, which is summer facility work update, and then just sticking around for the energy efficiency and conservation block grant update?
Okay. Summer work, I have to really commend the staff for really doing a good job. We're ahead of schedule as far as getting the buildings ready, waxing, stripping, all that stuff. The HVAC work, repair work at the middle school is complete. The air conditioners are back up and running. They have been for weeks now. But the greenhouse is just almost complete. We're just finishing up a few electrical connections. We gas line run and then some outside work, concrete and landscaping, stuff like that. That's all that lacks. At the high school, we will be installing or replacing the lights in the gym with new energy efficient, brighter lights, be more lights. And this is through the energy grant. Lincoln office, we are doing a minor renovation there with removing an old carpet and putting floor tile in. And then last, Washington Franklin. Right now I'm working on quotes for cleaning up the mold that's in the basement. And we had a air quality report, came back elevated, not super bad, but it's something we need to take care of. So
That mold cleanup, we think it will get done before the school year starts?
yes, yeah.
Okay.
Have we done an air quality in like all the schools, or do it when we think we need it? Or
We haven't. That's something we'll be doing though.
okay, you do that yearly or just?
But that's something we're
Yeah.
gonna have a plan where we will be doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments from Mr. Jim? Okay, what about an update on our energy efficiency and conservation block grant?
That's we're working on that. We've got a lot of the ballasts and the lights. We're working those in as needed. I said about the light fixtures in the gym. We'll be changing those out this month. We should be in good shape by the end of August.
Any questions?
Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry, Doris.
that's okay. Is there a deadline of when this work needs to be done?
August 31st, yeah.
And the grant is covering just cost of materials or labor and materials?
We have come up with 25% of the grant. They're covering materials and stuff, but that 25% also is including labor and extra materials that we need to do the installations, so that rentals and whatever.
Any idea what the estimated cost is of that 25% the school district's going to?
Roughly about 10,000. And that's including like what it costs the district for personnel, time, and all that.
Okay.
Yeah. Not outlay. Right, not outlay.
Anybody else? Thank you, Mr. Owens. Okay, we're down to Mr. Eaton.
Overall budget stuff.
Give us the down and dirty, Mr. Eaton.
Okay, first of all, I apologize for this not being available sooner, but I actually finished it up today. June 30th is the end of our fiscal year, and so basically we have to, for these meetings, there's a couple things we have to ask you as a board to do legally to be in compliance by July 1. So we generally have some time after payroll and have to basically shut down all the accounting transactions for the district a couple of days in advance. I think we've come close to doing that. And in doing so, there are a couple things legally we need to do, which are approve any transfers that we're going to make for this fiscal year, at least by June 30th. Another thing that we have to do legally to be in compliance with budgetary statutes is to ask the board to approve an operating budget to take effect July 1. So both of those things I'm going to do tonight. And in order to get to that point, I need to update you on how we finished this year and where we stand, at least at this point, with estimated fund balances and whatever, because that affects the transfer. So hopefully you have this information, and I'm happy to report that we ended the year much better than what we had anticipated. There's some cautionary tales involved in that, and I would ask you to turn to the page where it's indicated revenue gains over original budget. I certainly haven't had time to go through and do an in-depth analysis of all the budgetary items, but there are 4 different types of revenues that I've listed here, which are significant, I think, and which we've kind of known about that could happen. And the amounts listed on there are gains. Those are not total revenues. Those are gains over original budget. So you can see that one of the items I'm indicating is local property taxes. Traditionally, we've always budgeted 97% collection for current and delinquent taxes on real estate and personal property. At least at this point, the actual collection rate was just under 99% compared to our budget of 97%. So you can see we gained about $203,000 there, and I broke it down by fund for you. I would point out that there are $82,000 of taxes in there that have been paid to us by St. John County, which are still under protest. Those were released to us by court order, but if the protest is upheld, we could have to refund all or part of that money. So that's a caveat there. The M&M surtax, once again, not as much money, but I wanted to indicate there that a portion of that money from St. John, almost $39,000, is also under protest, which could put that gain at risk. But now on to the really strange news: the railroad and utility taxes. Our actual revenue was $610,000 more than I had originally projected. One of the reasons for that, there were protested taxes of $236,000 from Ameren that were settled and paid this year. Theoretically, we probably should have received that money last year. We received it this year. In addition, we did have some growth in railroad and utility taxes, and I've put the prior year revenue amounts there so that you can kind of see where we've been. We had been running about $1 million a year. Last year it dipped down to $870,000. A lot of that due to the fact that we did not receive those Ameren taxes. So when I put together this year's budget, I split the difference between the last year because I knew it was too low, but I also didn't know how much of that we might get this year. So I budgeted $940,000. It came in much better, so we had a big gain there with respect to this year. I suspect, and at some point now, perhaps this coming year, it'll level out. And I think we may be looking at a little bit of revenue growth there, but certainly not $600,000 every year. That was just sort of a timing difference. Another big item, the last item, state formula revenue. I had indicated this to the board previously. When we, at the beginning of the budget year, I think they were saying 92%, somewhere in that range. In order to be conservative, I budgeted 91%. I've left that on the budget all year, and you can see that halfway, for the first 6 months of the year, it was at 92. It then creeped up to 93%, and then lo and behold, when I got the state payment in June, on the 21st of this month, they had raised it to 94%. Which is good. I mean, we'll take that. States all close, or the state fiscal year is June 30th, as well as school fiscal years. And I'm starting to see a pattern here where the politicians, it may be popular to flow through some extra money at the end to make the school fund balances look better. But anyway, we'll take it. So really, the gap between the 91% budget and the 94% actual at end of year was almost $400,000. So what this sheet is intended to show you just quickly, and like I said, I haven't looked at all the accounts, there's going to be other gains and losses obviously, is when you ask, if someone asks you, how did we start the year with an operating deficit of about $200,000 and get to an $855,000 surplus? Okay, and that's what this all adds up to, is basically for operating monies, we ended the year with an $855,000 excess of revenues over expenditures. You can see that some of this is related to timing. What does that do for us fund balance wise? If you look at my memo, I've tried to break this down. These are all estimated, of course. There may be additional entries we need to make. There may be audit journal entries, adjusting entries, but at least as far as where our books are now, you can see that our estimating ending fund balances in the incidental fund unrestricted, a little over $1.3 million. So we've added to that number. The committed for stabilization reserve of $4.7 million. Remember, that is the 15% minimum that the board by policy has said is saying, we will try to maintain a minimum of 15% fund balances. So that would be the stabilization amount, and you can follow on through. So basically it's a scenario where we have been able to add over $800,000 to the operating reserves. Which takes us probably from 17% to about 20%. So we've gone to basically having a 2-month reserve, or a little under 2-month reserve, to maybe 2.5-month reserve. In my mind, of course I'm an accountant, I would say that probably 3 months would be more optimal. 24-25% would be a more reasonable range. However, I think in these times this is good. Another thing to remember while adding money to fund balances, this is just a measuring point. June 30th is just a measuring point. What this does is gives us a little more cushion to work with on some things, capital needs. Keep in mind, we've already given steps for employees. Keep in mind that our health insurance is costing us $260,000 more money. Keep in mind that the board has authorized us to look at some technology upgrades and improvements. So, I just don't feel at this point that there's a continuous stream of revenue that we really know. I think the state revenue picture is looking better. I haven't really done any detailed projections of next year's formula. Keep in mind that next year was the final year to phase in the new formula, so there'd be some changes in the formula. The last projection I've seen for us, we could actually gain maybe $150,000 to $200,000 in state formula money for the coming year, even though the proration factor will be 91%, is what they're telling us now, because the formula has changed. The legislature didn't do anything, so the last thing I've seen is that DESE had made a decision. Do you remember that state adequacy target, which is the amount technically you're paid per pupil? In other words, that's the amount the state says you need to have funding for to adequately educate. That was supposed to go to $6,400 and something. DESE says we don't have that much money. We're going to keep it where it is at like $6,100 something. We still don't have that much money, so that's why you're going to have a 91%. So I hope that's confusing for you. I mean, I hope you understand. But it is confusing, but I want to temper any enthusiasm by saying I don't think things are fixed. I mentioned that to you last month. I think if we have another year where we have some revenue growth that we think is going to be there, then I think we can do some things. But anyway, that's my take on it at this point. And what I'm going to be asking you for later is approval of one transfer from the incidental fund to the teacher's fund, which is a transfer we traditionally have made at the end of the year. And I'm going to also ask you to approve these end-of-year numbers as our beginning budget until we have the official budget hearing in September.
But you have to feel really good about the almost 99% property taxes paid.
Absolutely.
I mean, for the economy. I mean,
absolutely.
Blue star for the community.
Absolutely. It's easy to sit here now and say, wow, that worked out okay. But with 10 months ago, 11 months ago, we have no idea. And that's why I budgeted 91% for state revenue, because I've seen it go down. I'm showing you these numbers this year. The state kept increasing that because they did have a little extra money, but I've seen it go down. And I've seen money withheld. So you have to be somewhat conservative.
And we appreciate that from the standpoint we don't want to be sitting here listening to you tell us that we're an $800,000 deficit.
So,
yeah.
It's not, I don't think things are fixed, but we didn't go backwards, and we'll take it. Any questions?
Thank you, Don. Thank you very much. Okay, we pulled N, which is consideration of 2012-2013 handbook updates. Anyone have questions?
I think we're still on this, and we'll pull it for the vote.
Okay, so you want to go to Chad next?
Yes, and then
Okay.
we'll pull it for the vote.
Okay. All right. Mr. Pipkin?
So in response to the board's direction to seek some creative financing options for some of the technology purchases that need to be made, put some work into looking at what options exist there. You've got this document that I'm going to talk about. The goal obviously is to explore the leasing options that we have that maybe give us a little more flexibility in financing some of these equipment purchases. First one being the wireless network. So basically went back to Aruba, which is the company that we prefer, that is designed to work well with our system, our current infrastructure. And given the wireless infrastructure and the security and controlling mechanisms that go with it, we're looking at an approximate cost of about $125,000. For that price, that gives us district-wide coverage. Basically, any facility, any building would have coverage wirelessly. One thing I would mention is there will be some future additions that will go with that. we currently are desktop heavy. A lot of our machines are cabled. So in the future, as those begin to transition into more mobile devices, the density of wireless connected devices will increase. So with that, we'll have to add incrementally more access points to accommodate that. The foundation of the system is in place, and those increases should be pretty minimal. But just want you to be aware of that. The next bullet, no company-sponsored lease. Oftentimes, companies like Cisco or 3Com or HP will offer a sponsored leasing agreement where they give you 0% or really attractive financing options. That doesn't exist here. I inquired about that, and they basically referred me to an external financing source, so we're back at square one to using a bank or whatever mechanism we can find. The equipment life cycle on this network is listed as 7 years. Mean time to failure is very high, so the reliability of the equipment is good, but they list a life cycle of 7 years. So if we are going to do leasing, obviously a short term, it makes sense. That way we're not paying on antiquated equipment 10, 15 years down the line. Mm-hmm. The equipment, the support, the maintenance agreement, and also the install is bundled in that package. There's not a great deal of install and configuration. We would do part of that. The main issue is the mounting of the equipment on the ceiling and 1 cable per access point. So it's not extremely intensive, but there is some cost associated with that. And then there is a 3-year warranty on all equipment that's part of that bundled situation as well. So that would be the first part, the wireless network. Moving on to the computer leasing. What we've presented here is based on a 48-month lease, looking at Dell computers, largely because that's what most of our infrastructure is. I'm a big fan of standardization. I do not like mixing different vendors and technologies. We want to avoid the interoperability issues that we've had in the past. So we're looking at Dell computers based on a 48-month leasing term. Comes out to $20.50 per unit per month. I listed the specifications there, the model, and what we're looking at. That would be sufficient to accommodate any software that we have now and give us some growth capacity in the specifications. The support and maintenance is included in this type of a lease. If you have an issue, you call Dell, call the manufacturer. They overnight you a part, and it's a pretty good setup in terms of support. If there is a major issue that you're not able to resolve, they will actually send a tech from St. Louis down to service that. Software licensing is not included. The machines can come with software or Windows installed. 9 times out of 10 leases are set up to where it's equipment only, hardware only. The benefit, I guess, in our situation is that in a previous meeting, the board approved a software licensing agreement through Microsoft. We're covered on all our licensing anyway. So any hardware that we would get in this scenario, we load our software on it and we're already covered. So we're not going to be hurt by the lack of software licensing there.
Can I stop you right there,
Mm-hmm.
Chad? If we were going to go out and buy this computer outright, what's it going to cost? I mean, in my mind, I ran a number that's $984 a computer.
It's high.
In my mind, that number sounds high.
It is.
If we went out and bought that computer, what is it going to cost us?
Probably between $600 and $700.
Can not our support staff and technology department handle potential maintenance on those computers, yes or no, and save money?
Yes, sir. In my opinion, I believe they can.
As opposed to spending $984 per computer for a maintenance service agreement with
There are
Dell
distinct
company.
advantages to the lease in terms of hardware support and things. To answer your question, though, I feel like our staff is capable of maintaining those systems adequately.
4 years the computer's gone, it goes back to the company, it's not ours anymore. Correct me if I'm wrong, our average turnover's been 7-8 years now on our computers.
That's
So if we're rolling this computer through on a 7-8 year program, reality, this computer, instead of being $600 in a comparison time frame, would only be a $300 computer. Am I wrong in thinking that way? Are you following me when I said that?
You're talking about in terms of longevity,
Yes.
cost per year?
Yes.
If you look at it in that capacity,
We could be looking at $1,900 over an 8-year period.
when you get past the 5-year period, normally there's some additional replacement costs, whether it be a power supply or RAM or whatever internals start to go wrong. At that point, obviously, you're on the hook for what components are needed to do the repair. But that being said, you usually get 5 years out of the machine. So
On a 5-year rotation through, so we're looking at roughly $1,200, $1,250, I guess, per computer. In my mind, when I'm figuring this $250 per year per computer.
it's kind of difficult to look at it in terms of cost like that. I understand what you're saying, but there's a lot of variables at play that could adjust that either direction.
Okay.
But I agree, when you calculate that cost per machine out, it does seem high based on what you're getting. Because 9 times out of 10, a machine is going to run for a period of years before you have any major hardware issues. That's not something that's going to happen 2 years into it normally.
Are our technicians actually fixing computers now?
Repairing computers? Yes. If there is a hardware replacement, we contact CDI, which is the company we've been using. They ship us the part if the machine is indeed under warranty, but it is the task of our guys to go out and actually perform the repair on the machine. Only in the case that the repair or the part doesn't fix it and we're able to send the unit back as a whole, would that really not apply.
Every year, would the computer be a different computer? We would be getting to be a better computer every year?
In a lease, just to use a 4-year term, basically you take the entire quantity of systems you have, divide them up however you want over a 4-year rotation cycle. So first year you get a new cutting edge spec machine. By the time you get to year 5, you're back to replacing year 1. So every year, every rotation cycle, you end up with a new cutting edge spec. At the end of 4 years, though, you've got 4 models of machines, each one model per rotation cycle.
So we kind of have to do that, though, don't we?
We have to have a rotation cycle. The way we're doing it now is not working. There has to be a rotation cycle whether we do a leasing option or whether we look at a purchase option. But yeah, we've got to do something. 4 years seems to be a good number, but we've got other options as well. You can do a 3-year lease, you can do a 5-year lease. And those adjust. Obviously, the shorter term, the higher. And that really is financially prohibitive when you do it that way. 5-year will drop it some, but it's not a great deal. Is there any other questions on the leasing part? And note that I've got a section on the back that breaks that leasing down a little bit more, so there'll probably be some more conversation there. The cellular coverage boosters, in my opinion, that's not a great deal of expense. It is not cheap. However, the need for having cell coverage in those facilities, I think, is pretty high, especially from a security standpoint. There is obviously no good leasing option for that unless you wanted to go through a bank or another institution. Those, in my opinion, make sense to look at an actual purchase. Each location, Lincoln and middle school, both involve an RF booster which receives the signal, cleans it up, regenerates it in terms of cell signal. Middle school is going to be a little bit worse based on the location of it. So it's a little bit more expensive, and then it involves an omnidirectional antenna to rebroadcast that signal. It's a roof mount situation, so that it has a higher level of gaining the signal from the cell provider. And then the high school, I've been in contact with AT&T, and I know that the coverage there is very spotty. AT&T is telling me with an ETA of September 2012 that there will be major tower upgrades to this area that will enhance the coverage and likely take care of that issue. So, and obviously I can't recommend buying anything if they're going to resolve their issue in a couple of months, and then it'll be no cost to us.
Chad, is this a one-time cost?
Yes, on the Lincoln and middle school,
Okay.
One-time cost.
Okay.
There are agreements to where you can actually rent these type of boosters, but it makes no sense financially to do that, in my opinion. Moving to bus security systems, working with Stacy on this, the real need to get the camera coverage on the buses and also be able to have the DVR, the footage of those recordings archived so that in the case that we need them, we've got them. So what we're looking at is using a very similar system to what she has, in essence the same thing, but adding a wireless bridge component to it, which will put it on the network when it pulls into our lot. With the wireless coverage situation, when the bus pulls into the lot, there's about a 10 to 15 second gap, and then it connects to the network and begins to upload all of the recordings that it had taken when it was out on route. This gets stored in our system and is available when someone needs to pull it up. It seems like the cleanest way to do it, rather than messing with VCR tapes or drives. There's too many variables that could go wrong there. This is much cleaner. You can do it, and then I can have it set up to report so that if a bus comes on and there's a trouble with the link or trouble with the upload, it notifies me and I know that I need to go do this manually or check out that there's a problem. But it seems like the best way to go, and it really doesn't add that much more cost to the recording unit as it is. Approximate cost is about $1,800 a bus, and there's approximately 33 of those that need to be put in. Any questions so far? The last section, I've taken that leasing structure on the computers and try to break it down to help you understand what it might look like from an implementation standpoint. What we'd like to accomplish starting 2012-2013 year all the way through 2015-2016. This is based on a 4-year leasing term. You'll notice that the high school is weighted very heavily in units that it receives first. And that's largely due to our testing requirements and the fact that that's where the largest part of our technology exists right now. So it just makes sense that those two the high school gets taken care of mainly in the first 2 years as opposed to stretching it out. And then the other buildings are broken out fairly consistently across the 4 years. Under each one of those years, I've listed the total number of units per year and then the total number of units that will be affected in the lease. Note that that is a compound number. Year 1 is 475. Year 2 adds 475 to it, so you end up with a total number leased computers of 950. And of course, as that grows, so does your cost structure. The monthly cost goes up. Well, actually, it doubles, literally. And then so does the annual cost. You'll notice that in year 3 and year 4, same situation. Year 4 basically is the remainder of what we've got left, which that's why there's a difference between the total units in 3 and 4. But you'll see we end up with a total number of units of 1812. Total cost is $37,146 a month. Total annual cost is $445,752.
What's our true rough number now, the number of computers we have?
It's about 1840. We're a little bit high. That number factors in decommissioning a few that are really out there just because we have them, that aren't getting used. They're really just sucking electricity is what they're doing.
So you're looking 4 years, everything we have now is gone and we're replaced completely with all lease.
Yes. The only thing that is not included in this would be our servers. This is just PCs and laptops. Just to let you know too, desktops are a little cheaper on the lease number. Laptops are a little higher on the lease number. I literally went down the middle to give you these estimates. So based on how the quantity shifts from number of desktops to laptops will change a little bit, but in terms of just giving you numbers, I split it right down the middle between the two.
So we're estimating roughly $500,000 per year, give or take a little bit.
And note that
after a 4-year period to stay on a continuous lease.
But, correct me if I'm wrong, we're continuing to move up each year.
Correct.
And so I guess my question I'd ask is what year 5 will look like?
Yeah, well, and by the time you get to year 5, I can guarantee you the cost will move down. It's going to go up.
I'm just curious from the standpoint that we're talking about options, and we have a 4-year here, that's all we see. I mean,
right.
I know 3 is more expensive than it would be.
Yeah, and I can give you just a ballpark estimate here.
Just curious of what we're looking at. And here, it tells me you're going up 100,000 every year, basically.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, in my mind, it should level out if we're on a 4-year rotation, if we're phasing out, other than the cost of living or the cost of computers each year and the cost of that lease per month, it should level out if we're staying with 1,800. Now, if we decide we're going to add 475 more,
The reason it
class
increases.
size growth,
Yeah.
student numbers.
The reason it increases the first 4 years so much is because you're constantly rolling large number of PCs into the lease. Once you've reached the total number of PCs in the district, it will level out. But I mean, it's
Then it's about time to start replacing again.
yeah. Well, then when you get to year 5, your lease is technically up, and then you're in a renegotiation path again. So what does that look like? Obviously, we don't have any control over what incremental increases they'll have, but from experience, I can guarantee you that won't go down.
But we also don't know what our use of tablets and other kinds of devices are going to be at that point in time.
Yeah, there's variables at play there, sure. Just for your information, I'm allowing $20.50 per on this calculation. If you take that to 36, it's 22. If you take it to 60, it goes to 1975. So it's pretty tight in terms of difference. It will make some, obviously, with that number of units.
You may not have this number, Chad. What have we spent average in the last number of years per year computers? You may not, you
I
may
don't
not
even
have
know
it.
that I can accurately answer that, to be real honest with you. That's very tough. It's kind of been by as we have the ability. There's been no real structure to it, which, regardless of what we do, whether it's lease or purchase, we've got to get a structure to it.
Not enough, because that's why we're in the shape we're in.
Good point.
Well, the advantage, we're always getting an upgrade every year. We're not.
What happens if in a 5-year period a new board comes in and they say, we're not going to pay for this anymore? We get rid of the lease, now we don't have any computers at all because we don't own them.
Well, this is structured with a $1 buyout. So at the end of the lease, after you've paid your due, there's a $1 buyout. So you would own the equipment at the end of the lease in that way. If you continue it, then obviously it goes back and you get a new shipment. And there's always the possibility that it could change, sure, as new boards come in. I mean, if you want a comparison, I can tell you this. Our current model has been to buy CDI. CDI is an organization that gets off-lease computers. A company like Anheuser-Busch would lease their systems, and many of them they do every year. So they're 1 year old at the time that we would get them from CDI. There's some benefit to that. I mean, I can buy a desktop for under $300. I can buy a laptop for somewhere around $320 or $330. So just to run numbers, if I take 475, which would be 1 year of this lease, times, let's say 300, split it down the middle, that's $142,500 to actually buy 175 outright. Now the difference is you're not getting cutting edge brand new PCs, you're getting PCs that are 1 year old. They've got 1 year worth of use. And again, that's a decision for the board to decide. But we've got a lot of PCs that are 7, 8, 9 years old. So. Is there any questions or anything that I can do to help shed some light on questions or concerns?
So if we went around like that, we'd probably want to do a third of our computers a year instead of fourth or fifth. Because we start with an old machine already.
You could do that. You could, if we were able to accommodate the finances, we could do the first year with a higher percentage. Second year, 2, 3, and 4, it could be smaller numbers. Something creative, I guess, to get more PCs replaced quickly might be an option. A lot of things to consider.
I think the issue, though, is that we're at a stage where technology is a consistent cost every year in the budget. We're not going to be in a position where we can buy something and have it taken care of. So whatever we do, we need to be thinking in terms of committing funds at a certain level to do the best that we can on an ongoing basis, as opposed to thinking about it as a one-time purchase piece. And that's the part that I think we have to kind of move into, that it's going to be an annual cost of some kind in order to continue to prevent us from getting at a point where we are now.
I think this is a good balance, to do it slowly enough so that we can keep financially abreast of it, but still keep improving. I mean, it's always going to be an upgrade and improvement. That's why you go from your 3G to your 4G.
It's so difficult once you get so many years back to set yourself back on top of the water. And I feel like that's kind of where we're at. So what's the best option? Lease, purchase? So that's kind of where we're at.
I think you did a great job of explaining. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so we're going to move into action items, and I'm going to need a motion to approve the consensual items with the exception of B, N, S, and T.
So moved.
Give me a second.
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor? All those opposed? So moving to item B, I need a motion to approve the regular bills for June 2012.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all those in,
We'll get it later.
Okay.
okay, all those in favor? Okay, opposed? Good. All right, moving over to item N, approval of 2012-2013 handbook updates. Any questions?
Make a motion.
Sorry, motion. You made a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion made and seconded, any discussion?
On handbook, yeah.
Hello, hello.
Yeah. The only question I had on the handbook was on the athletics and that was on the survey from the players and the parents and that. Has that survey been put in process to?
We use it as a trial this spring with the spring sports, and we have some information we were going to share with it this evening. But we've implemented it and we'll kind of review the process and review the survey until we'll fine-tune it before we put it in place next fall.
Okay. The only problem I have is that we've got a 13, 14-year-old kid evaluating a coach, and I'm not sure having any of the students evaluating the coach how they think, what he's doing in that. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and I think the survey is more about how did you think the season went? Did you like the scheduled practice times? Do you have any suggestions to improve? I don't think it's going to be based on coach evaluation. And as we talked through that, the other piece to that would be, that information would be, that's what the athletic director would then work with the coaches on setting goals for the next year. If every kid felt like practicing at 6 a.m. and work with their schedule, if that was something that came out of the survey, then as the coach works on next season, they may say, maybe we need to see if we can find a practice time in the evening instead of at 6 a.m. So it's not a piece of the evaluation as much as it's a piece of information that then helps the coach review their own program and see, do I need to set goals with the athletic director that would maybe address some of the issues that came up. Things that are highly successful, they obviously want to keep doing.
Well, I've got the questionnaire right here. One of them, do you think the practice was well organized? Strongly disagree, neutral, agree, why should, to me, that's the coaches, him run this practice and everything, and whether a kid likes practice. I hated football practice, and I guarantee you I would have strongly disagreed with it. So,
But I think in that particular question, there's probably a difference between whether you like practice or what someone did with you versus, all right, boys, here's the ball, go have at it for 45 minutes or an hour or 2 hours or whatever it may be.
Right.
That's how I would interpret the question as opposed to.
I understand that's how you interpret it, but I'm talking about a 13, 14-year-old kid, you know, and to me, as an athletic director, and you see a coach saying, hey, coach, you're not even practicing, you know, and this and that, how do you expect to win games, you know? I can see how you would be going to him and saying, you know, I think you might need to, you know, change this instead of having a kid coming with a survey and then we look at it and this and that, and, you know. I've had a couple of coaches talk to me about it, and you know, they feel uncomfortable about a kid evaluating them and everything, you know. And then also, you know, having a parent, how would a parent know unless he's sitting there on practice to see, you know, how practice is going?
And that's part of the fine tuning process with this. You know, we put this together this spring, looking at questions and how they're set up and how they're formulated is something that we'll look at doing.
Did all the coaches have the input on this?
No, they did not. We put it together and just did it.
Okay. So.
That's not the one that's going forward. You know, that's not the end-all survey.
Right, I understand. I just, you know, came to my attention. I kind of agree with them. I mean,
You think we'd get to take a peek at that at some point in time?
I don't think it's finished, but sure.
The final?
Yeah. It's great.
Who's all involved in putting that together? Pat?
I put it together this spring, and part of the process, I questioned some schools who kind of get some input from schools that were doing it, got some samples, and took from the different samples, kind of put it together to come up with a working document.
Did you involve some of your coaches in that?
No, sir.
I think that's the question for the fine tuning is what would you like to know about your sport?
No, I just know you have some coaches that are very upset about the survey that's flying around, and I think they have reason to be.
yeah.
Because they feel like they haven't had any input on it, and they're being evaluated and have no voice. That's why.
So you think this will be a part of the fine tuning process then to kind of
Absolutely.
figure out? So we're still in process.
Right, but I think you got a little damage control too. You need to get your coaches involved and at least let them have a little input, whether you use it or not. But give them a little input.
And I would like for the board to have the final say on it if it's all possible. And that for a survey like this, if we're having a student doing a survey.
I want to clarify that any kind of survey like that is not used for evaluative purposes. I also want to create a little bit of contextual piece. Remember that we've had lots of conversation about whether or not there is appropriate communication going on. So we've also had numerous parents come in and say, it was nice to at least have a voice about things. I think what we want to probably do is to look at how we evaluate any of our programs. This is not the only program that we would be asking for some feedback on the program as opposed to the person. And we may need to clarify that piece.
Well, I mean, would we have regular teachers having their students evaluate them whether they're...
The high school has been doing course satisfaction surveys and looking at how meaningful courses are as a part of growing citizens and having feedback. It's one of those expectations that also happens in college and career settings. We want our students to be able to be prepared to express opinions appropriately and to have that format. So yeah, we are doing that. Matt, you may want to speak to the course evaluations that
we
you're doing.
used those for our adjunct model this last year. So the teachers we had that were teaching on the adjunct.
Right,
but the students.
But you don't have a question in there whether the kid is asked, do you think that the teacher was prepared and given
I believe that question was prepared. Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Well, like I said, I've had a couple come to me and I'm like Howard. I mean, they're not happy, so I think there might have been a little miscommunications on some things, for what's going on, and that's,
The only item that says practices are well organized. That's all it says.
And Pat, these questionnaires will be post-season, correct?
Yes.
So that any information or feedback can be utilized for next season.
And as part of the plan, as far as some of the things that was tied to an evaluation part of it, the plan is now, evaluation takes place 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it is, time frame is, then here's kind of the general items that were touched on in the postseason survey. So it's not going to be, here's the evaluation, here's the survey, they're not linked.
And there is some consideration about talking with coaches and having them be reminding them to be aware of what's going on with the kids and those kinds of things too.
Yeah, that part I don't have a problem with. That the coaches meeting with the parents and the kids before the season and then discussing to them, after and all this and that. It's just the survey part that I have a problem with.
Well, part of the process for this upcoming fall, we can absolutely involve the coaches in that process. I think that's a valid point.
I think they might appreciate being involved,
We can do that.
feel like they have a voice. Good. Any other comments or suggestions or discussion?
So this questionnaire is on the final site tonight, what I'm hearing.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it. It sounds like it's part of the process. Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, we have a motion and second
For the
and
handbooks.
for the handbooks, and we need a vote. So all those in favor of approval of the 2012-2013 handbook update? Okay, that's good. I didn't miss a no vote, did I? Be really careful with that. Okay, so are we down to approval of technology equipment replacements and upgrades for the 2012-2013 school year? I'm going to need a motion for that in a second.
Can I just clarify one thing? Making this approval, we would still need to come back for the expenditures for an actual final purchase of that, but it's moving forward to that point. You're not voting to buy it, you're voting on the plan. We would need to come back with the actual purchase prices and the rest of that.
Okay, everybody got that clarification?
So these prices and these projections we have are not,
Those are the estimates, just like he said, that we took the total number of laptops and desktops,
but I'm
divided it, those kinds of.
I'm assuming that we're going to vote to stay within those
Oh,
numbers.
absolutely, not above that, correct. Yes, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, all those in favor of approving?
We haven't made a motion.
I'm sorry.
And then we have to
I
have
would
a
like to make a
discussion.
motion
Thank you.
And then have a
that we
discussion.
stay within those numbers.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, do I hear a second?
Do we have a motion first?
I second.
Okay. All right, so now any discussion?
I guess I'm seem to be in favor of the whole project, Chad, that you've put together, and you've explained it well to me. I guess my concern is, and I keep looking at this thing, I'm going to lease a new vehicle versus buy a new truck, or I'm going to buy a one-year-old truck and let someone else take the hit, so to speak. You made mention about Anheuser-Busch. You can buy the laptop for $600, $700, and we buy it a year old for $325 or $300. I'm thinking, in my mind, I'm looking at this as the new vehicle. Who's taking the hit on this?
Similar principle?
I guess in my mind, I would like to look into more of, all right, so it's a year old. It's definitely newer than 7 years old. It's definitely newer than a 10-year-old computer that we've had around here that's, we'll call it the Stone Age, Ten Commandment, chiseled in stone computer. I guess in my mind, from that leasing part of the actual computer itself,
Everything get over it.
I would like to look more into that. Why look at $1,000? We can look at something for $325 if our technology department can actually service it, take care of it, fix that problem as long as there's a continual source of those availability every year to replace 500 laptops or 500 desktops. And I don't know if that is something we can change after we take a vote on that or not. That's just my way of thinking right now. Who's taking the hit on buying the new piece of equipment, whether it's a lease or whether it is a purchase?
It looks like our annual expense look a whole lot less.
Yeah.
Even buying a lot more of those CDI computers.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with everything Ben said, but we're just looking at, this is just to move forward at looking at options, correct?
Well, I think what we can do is have this to bring back a plan that doesn't exceed those numbers, to take that piece into consideration, and then to move forward. I think the other reason I'd like us to get some more information to come back is that part of the situation that we're in is that we have bought used and refurbished. And so the question also becomes, unlike a car that has a lifetime that's longer than 3 years, the actual life expectancy of a computer is not that length. And I would like to make sure that Chad's able to bring back some information to make sure that if we're buying a computer that's already a year old, are we still going to get the same number of years? And so we can look at that, come back. But that's part of the problem that we have, is we now have antiquated equipment that we bought. We haven't had it that long, but we can't use it anymore. And so technology is a little bit different on that, and I think we just need to have a little bit more background in coming back for that.
But Ben's question is, do we have that right after we vote to explore that option?
Yes.
Stay under that money figure?
Yes.
That's what I'm
The
assuming.
reality
Yes.
is, if we can really stay under the money,
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Replace every other computer
Good question.
every year for a lot less money than the lease.
I think we need to look at it, whether we do it or not. I think we definitely need to look at it.
my whole point in that was, if we vote now, are we going to shut down that potential option of looking at,
No.
what do you call
No.
it, CWI?
CDI.
CDIs.
Everything's got initials.
Everything's an acronym.
Okay.
You're actually approving the idea that we're going to do equipment and replacement upgrades for next year.
Yeah.
Right.
And we'll bring that plan back. We understand that it's not to exceed those dollar amounts, and we will do more exploration and come back. Let me provide one other point of clarification. Part of the reason we need you to do this is that if the buildings don't realize they're getting some new equipment district-wide, they're trying to scavenge their building budgets for it. And so we need them to know that they're getting a certain number of pieces of equipment regardless of what it is for next year. That's the reason for wanting to get that plan approved at this point.
And I just want to make sure there's a continual source of this
I'm worried about that.
CDIs. Is there, do you act like there's a continuous source that's out there?
It is, it's been out there historically now, a long time.
Long time, they've been in business a long
With
time.
the quantity of systems that are out there, and the companies that do leases, very large companies, there's far more than would ever be exhausted in my experience.
Okay.
You do have to be much more careful in specifying exactly what model that you want to buy. You obviously want to buy something that's high enterprise grade that has longevity to it more than a consumer grade that's in an off-lease situation. We don't want that.
I guess, again, I'm trying to relate this to my past experience. If I buy a new truck, if I buy a new vet truck, it's going to last me 5 years or 7 years before I theoretically wear it out, run the wheels off of, whatever you want to call it. But I could buy a 1-year-old truck for half the money. But I can drive for 6 years versus 7 years. In my mind, I'm going to buy the 1-year-old truck, run it for 6 years, and then it goes to the scrap pile.
Right. And our goal really is to ensure that our computer resources aren't antiquated where they're beyond use. And I think if we, whichever direction we go, even with the CDI system, as long as we make sure that they're maintained more regularly, I don't think we'll get back to that situation. Just something has got to be put in place.
We're making him a commitment to put dollars in it every year.
Yes.
With this plan.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I know we had to pay to get them picked up, though, like some of the older stuff.
That's part of what we have to,
I mean, that was
Exactly.
an issue there that we couldn't find. We had all these computers that were dead, but nobody wanted them, so we actually had to pay people to come get them.
That's why they went gravel roads. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I do know that coming up,
Put a few on every class.
kind of mentioned up today, when we're at that Civic Center, they're gonna have some type of pickup, computers, any type of appliances, all kinds of stuff. You want to get rid of it, there's some type of green, it's part of the green part, stuff that's, but I can't remember what the date is. And that. So, everybody get rid of it now.
Okay, any more discussion? Okay, can I call for a vote? We are voting on approving the technology. Yes.
Voting on your
You're
motion.
voting on your motion now.
We started all this.
All right, and we had a second. So all those in favor? Okay. All right, and
Howard made the motion.
Howard made the
Kevin did
motion.
second.
Dolores did the second, I
No,
think?
Kevin did.
Kevin did the second. Sorry, Kevin.
It's all right.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we're up to speed. All right. I need a motion to approve the board docs contract.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
I'd asked to have that put on there, and the reason I did was that had never been approved by the Board of Education. And I know I brought a contract forward last month that had been signed by district personnel the 3rd of January, expending district funds for our board docs. Not that the money was spent at that time, but the contract was signed at the time. And you know, Diana, what was it, a little over a year ago, you stood right here and gave me a little oath of office, and you made me raise my right hand and swear that I'd uphold the Constitution and law and all that stuff. Well, contracts, folks. If you're expending taxpayer money and you're entering into contracts out there, you need to bring those before the board and get those approved. And because if you don't, those contracts are not binding if they're not approved. So just be careful out there and make sure that you're doing that. I'm ready.
Okay. Anybody else? Discussion? Okay. All those in favor? All right. I need a motion to adjourn to closed session.
So moved.
No, wait a minute. You can't do it that way, do you?
Can't read it.
You gotta read it. Look, read this.
Okay.
Read that right
Put my
there.
glasses on. So moved.
I've got my glasses on. I don't need
So moved. To discuss personnel pursuant to 610.021, paragraphs 1, 3, and 13.
Need a second.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Roll call vote, please. Yes.
Kane,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Harrington,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes.
Roethlisberger.
Yes.
Probably.
Closed session?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.